Alrighty, welcome back to part 2 of our tutorial. We are creating a poster for a DJ that's playing at a nightclub. This is as far as we got in part 1, where we created a little DJ booth with some writing on there. Also got the date down the bottom and the price of the tickets. And one thing I forgot to do in the first video is just put a drop shadow on the tickets here. So if you just go up to the tickets layer and just double click next to the name of it, just quickly add a drop shadow to it and click OK. Okay, just add a bit of depth to it. If you wanted to, you could change the color of this slightly just so it stands out from the tickets. You don't have to, but if you wanted to, you could go to the color overlay and you could choose like a darker kind of purple or something, I guess. Not too dark. Just something a little bit different from the tickets. Something like that might look good, and we'll click OK. You could even drop the opacity of these. You don't have to, but just drop the opacity a little bit, just so they don't stand out too much. I reckon that looks pretty good. So I'll drop the opacity to 85% for both of those, and that's looking pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a picture of this DJ. So Alice in Wonderland, she looks like this. Okay, we need to get this photo and bring it into Photoshop. So I'm just going to right click on that little thumbnail, and I'll just open with Photoshop. Okay, and just going to zoom out a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to cut her out from this background. So the first thing we need to do is we need to select her. The best way to select her, or the quickest way, is using this quick selection tool. Okay, it's like a little paintbrush with a loop on the end of it. With the quick selection tool chosen, I want you to go up the top, make sure you got the little plus sign paintbrush selected, which means we are making or adding to our selection. And I want you to start clicking and dragging over the top of her, and it's going to start selecting her body. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. You need to be really fussy and try and select as carefully as possible all around her hair, her hands and her jacket, until she's all selected. If you go outside the lines a little bit, don't worry, we're going to fix that in a moment. Just get as close as you can to the edge of her body though. Okay, and those little marching ants should be going around her body. Now if you've selected too much, you can grab the little paintbrush up here with the minus symbol to deselect certain parts. Okay, so just go around, and if you've got any red parts selected, just deselect them now. Okay, you can use the square brackets on your keyboard to make your brush size bigger and smaller, or you can use this option up here to make the size a bit smaller to get into these nitty gritty spots like in between her hands here. I just like using the left square bracket to make my brush smaller and my right square bracket to make it bigger. Again, if you want to select some parts that have been deselected by mistake, just grab the plus paintbrush up there and go and reselect those parts. Now when you think you've got it looking pretty good, what we can do now is go up and click Select and Mask at the top. And that's basically going to show us how good our cutting out job was. Okay, still a few issues there. So with this little plus tool selected, okay, you can go around and just, whoops, I think I need the minus tool. Go around and just tidy up those edges. Oops, that's going way too much. I might need to make my brush a little bit smaller. Let's go and deselect those red bits. You can see if it does too much, just press Ctrl Z to undo it. There's a couple of little red bits there, don't stress, because we are going to turn her into black and white eventually anyway. I'm missing a bit of a jacket there, so I just want to bring that back. So do the best you can to tidy it up. I won't dwell on this too long because I want to keep going with the tutorial. Something looking like that is pretty good. Whoops. Because I stuffed it up. When you're happy with it, just click on OK. And you've now got a pretty decent selection. Okay. In that selector mask, a couple of other things I should have shown you is over here on the right hand side. If you feather it by about 1 pixel, it just smooths the edges out of your selection. And you can even choose the smooth option, maybe just 1 as well. Click OK. It'll just make a slightly smoother edge around our cut. And what we can do now is simply just go up to Edit and Copy. Then going back to our original, which is over here, go to Edit and Paste. And that will paste a copy of her onto a new layer. So I'm going to go to layer 1 here and just write Alice in Wonderland. Actually, I won't call it Alice in Wonderland, I'll call it DJ. That's a bit simpler. And I'm going to move her up here into position, and I'm going to hold down Shift and drag out from a corner to make her a bit bigger. Okay, so depending how much room you got left, you want to get her about that size. And press the tick at the top. Okay, and you can see her body here has been cut off, and it's still sitting in front of the DJ booth. So what you need to do with your layers here is drag that down below the DJ booth, which is all the way down here. And that hides her behind the booth now. So I think she might be a little bit big, so I'll just make her a bit smaller again. So that's a pretty good size once she's in the middle there. Press the green tick. And I'm pretty happy with that positioning now. What we're going to do next is we're going to turn it into grayscale. So I'm going to suck the color out of the picture. The way we do that, we go to our Adjustments tab over here. And the first option in the second row, if you hover over it, it will say Hue and Saturation. So click on that. Actually, before you do that, I'm going to have to undo that. You need to make sure you've still got the the DJ layer selected. So make sure you got that selected, then go up to your adjustments, hit the Hue and Saturation button, and hit this little button here with the down arrow coming out of the square. Okay, so that means this effect is only going to apply to the layer below it. So that's the DJ layer. And just turn the saturation all the way to the left, which takes all the color out of the picture. So you can see now it's in grayscale. And you can just click out of that. That's looking good. And then we're going to put a splash of purple over the top of her. Okay, just to keep with the color scheme we've got going on. So the way we do that is we just go to the DJ layer here again and double click next to the name of it. We're going to choose the color overlay option. Okay, you can see what it's doing at the moment there. We want to choose a purple color, so not a pink, we want to go more purple. And click OK. Change the blend mode to overlay. And make sure the opacity there is at 100%. You should see something looking like that now. Okay, if you want to play with that opacity, you probably can a little bit, but don't move it too much. Okay, you want to have it looking pretty purple still. And just click on OK. I guess one other effect we could put on her is a little bit of an outer glow. So she's got a bit of a white glow around her. Okay, so if you go back to the DJ layer here and double click on it, let's find the outer glow option down the bottom here. Okay, leave the blend mode as screen. The opacity, we'll make it pretty light. We'll make it about 10% to start with. We can turn it up from there if need be. Color should be just white. Technique should be softer. The spread, make it about 20. Okay, you start to see a little bit of a spread coming out of there, a little bit of a glow. The size, maybe try 60. Make it a bit bigger there. And everything at the bottom should be just fine. So you can see a little bit of a glow around it now. Okay, it's nothing too fancy, but it does make it help us stand out a little bit more. Alright, next thing we're going to do, we're going to draw some fancy little circle effects. I'll show you what I mean by that. These little purple arcs coming over here is what we're going to make next, simply using the circle or ellipse tool. So we're going to go over to our shapes here. You'll probably see your rectangle tool in your toolbox, but if you hold your mouse down on it, grab the ellipse tool, which is our circle tool. Change your color, so your fill color here, to one of those darker purples you've been using. And I want you to draw a circle, let's say about that size on the page. It's probably not dark enough. That if I can go a little bit darker. Double click on that. It's not going to give me an option. Oh, there we go. We'll go a little bit darker. There we go, that looks a bit better. So with this circle tool selected, I want you to go up and choose the Elliptical Marquee tool. And we're going to select a majority of this. Not all of it, but a majority of it. Maybe about that much. Okay, and we're simply going to press delete on our keyboard. Oops. Before we do that, we're going to have to rasterize this layer. So right click on it, just rasterize it, which means we can edit it. Now you can press delete. And that will delete a good chunk of that circle out. If you press Ctrl D, it gets rid of that little bunch of marching ants. That doesn't look too bad. I think I might try and cut out a little bit more actually. So I'll move that selection over here a bit more. So I might draw it again. This one a little bit skinnier. Okay. Try that. Doesn't look too bad. Got a little bit of a line here I want to get rid of, so I'll just delete that bit. There we go. So when you're happy with it, you'll have a bit of an arc looking like so. Okay, and what you want to do with that arc is position it over here, hover off one of the edges and give it a bit of a rotate, so basically going through a hand there. Not covering a face at all, we'll just put it about there. Okay, press the green, the little tick at the top, sorry, and drag that layer down, 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 down until we go just above the DJ layer. Okay, you can rename this if you want to. Let's call it Arc 1 because we're going to do 2 of them, so we'll call that one Arc 1. Okay, once you've got that in now, we're going to duplicate the Arc 1 layer by right clicking on it and duplicating the layer. We'll call it Arc 2. Click OK. And what you're going to do now is just go to Edit, Transform, and flip it horizontally. Okay, and you'll get a second arc in that I just want you to cross over. Looking something like that. Okay, so work out how you want to position those arcs. Mine are a little bit thick, I guess, at the moment, but they should look something like that when they're done. Now, what we're going to do is zoom in a bit near her hand here. We're going to rub out some of this arc. So using your eraser tool, which is this one here, just press the letter E to pick it up. I want you to click on the DJ layer. Sorry, not the DJ layer, the Arc 1 layer. And you can use your square brackets or your tool up the top here to change the size. And just start rubbing out where her hand should be. You want to be able to see her hand. And I might even drop the opacity of this a little bit just so I can see where I'm rubbing out. Just want to rub her hand out the best we can, and a little bit of her arm too. Alright, once you've got that hand and arm rubbed out, you can turn the opacity back up to 100%. You can see that looks pretty reasonable now. I did make a bit of a mistake there over the back of her hand, but that doesn't look too bad. If you wanted to, you could rub out this part as well, but I think I might leave it as is. I reckon that looks pretty cool. So that's got the 2 arcs going across her. The next thing we might do is we might start putting some... Actually, I might even try and put a drop shadow in on those arcs and see if it makes it look a little bit more realistic. So on Arc 2, just double click on it and whack a drop shadow in. Yeah, that looks a bit better. You get a bit of a shadow under there. Okay. Leave it as multiply. Make the distance pretty close, so maybe 3 or 4 might be a good distance. I'll go with 4. The size, keep it pretty small, probably a 4 again. It'll be fine. Click OK. You can do the same for the other arc if you'd like. Double click on it. Throw in a drop shadow. That'll be the same settings as before, so you can click on OK. Just a little slight shadow underneath there makes it look pretty good. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is we're going to put in some musical brushes behind her. And that'll make more sense when I show you the example. It's these faded out little musical symbols and stars and whatnot in the background. The way we get them in is we use a brush. Okay, and in the folder I've given you these different brushes. If you double click on music brushes, it will open up Photoshop. And it looks like nothing's happened. Okay, but what has happened is when you grab your paintbrush tool here and select the brushes from the top up here, I'm just going to change how this looks. I'm not going to see the brush name or the brush stroke. I just want to see the brush tip. Okay, you've got all these different brushes here. Okay, actually that hasn't loaded in the one I wanted. I'll just have to double click on it again. Music brushes. And then music brushes appears in our brushes option here. You've got all these different music brushes that you can apply to your poster. Okay, so I might grab the star just here to start with and turn its size up a bit. Okay, you're going to need to make a new layer for this as well. So up the top here, I'm just going to click on tickets and then make another new layer. And I'm going to call it brushes. Actually, I'll call it music brushes. And now we should be able to draw on our page here. Okay, now I want to make these pretty big, so I'm going to use my right square bracket to make this nice and big, and I'm just going to whack a star in right there. I want to drop the opacity of this layer down really low, maybe around 15% at the highest. Okay, we don't want this to stand out too much. And we're also going to have to bring this layer down behind the DJ layer. Okay, so all this stuff is going in behind her body. Okay, so with music brushes still selected as our layer, we can go and grab some more brushes. So we've got the microphone here. You can make that nice and big and stick that out the side. You just see them fading into the background there. Looks really cool. What else we got? We've got a cassette. Some of you probably don't even know what a cassette is, but it's the old way we used to listen to music. I'll just find a good spot and stick that in somewhere. So just keep doing that with a few different brushes there until we've got a few nice patterns coming in behind her. Do one more. What's this first one? I'm not sure what it is. A little speaker. Stick that over there. Alright, so we've got some nice little musical shapes in the background there. That looks really good. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to put in some bright, colourful paint brushes. Okay, so what we might do there is make a new layer just above those music brushes, and we'll call this one paint brushes. And in your folder here, I've given you the paint stroke brushes. Just double click on that. And now with your paintbrush tool still selected, you can go up, close the music brushes and open up the paint stroke brushes. And you have all these different paint strokes that you can put in. So just select any one of them. Make it nice and big using your right square bracket. And something you can do, is it in properties? There it is there, sorry. So up the top there, that little folder with the paintbrush on it brings up your brush settings. You can actually change the direction of these brushes. So if you want it going up like that, or you could have it going out to the left like that. It's up to you. Okay, but what you want to do is pick some bright colours. So I'm going to pick this nice bright blue and just click once on the page. Okay, and that puts a nice big slap of blue paint behind her. I'll change my brush now to something else. Change my colour to something else that's fluoro. Make it nice and big, and this one can go out maybe off the side here. I might change its angle too. It's brush settings. Something like that. And we'll go pick another one. Choose another bright colour. Make it nice and big. Slap that in. If you want to put a couple next to each other like so, like that, that could look good as well. So it's just a matter of picking some nice bright brushes and slapping them in behind her there. Okay, let's try and change this angle a bit. That's pretty good. Another nice and big one. It's looking pretty good. Maybe one or two more and we should be all good. What's another bright colour? We'll try an orange. And what way is this one going? So you want it probably to face out that way. And maybe one more coming up over the right here, over her right, or her left shoulder. We'll be all good. Pick one more bright colour. What haven't we had yet? Maybe a red kind of colour. I want it to point out that way. Okay, something like that. Okay, so now we've got some pretty cool bright colours hidden up behind her there. So we are pretty much done now. So what you can do is simply just go to the File menu, Save As. If you want to come back to it and edit it, then you would have it as a PSD file, but if you're happy with it, then just save it as a JPEG file. I'll give it the name DJ Poster. You want to save this into an appropriate folder in your document somewhere. And a little box will come up asking you what quality you want to set it at. 12 is pretty big, it's a 5.5 megabyte file. Okay, so unless you're really going to print this, then don't save it at that size, maybe about size 8. Okay, that's still about 2 megabytes in size, but it will still be good quality. Click on OK, and you are done with your poster.